The devil wasn't satisfied then. Still said, oh no, I'm not content. I've yet got to do something to stop God. So what he's doing now, to make a long story short, he has implanted within the minds of our children that they don't need God. Do whatever you want to do. Have you some fun. Young people now are dying like dogs in the street. One of the biggest killers of young people is depression. Young people are depressed on every hand. You wonder what in the world is depressing them. Why are they so depressed? Why? What's going on? Depression leads to suicide. Help me through here, Holy Ghost. Suicide, self-murder. And the devil will put into the minds of young people, you can't get no help. Don't nobody like you. Don't nobody care about you. And then he'll tell them, don't nobody understand you. Well, young people, it is a trick of the devil to make you think that don't nobody understand you. God understands you. And he'll give you help if you let him. Now the problem that parents have, many of us have spoiled our children. We are guilty of trying to give them everything that we didn't have. And in doing so, we have spoiled them. Until now, they don't feel like they got to work for nothing. They do their own thing and will quick tell you where to get off at. The devil is a lie. Touch somebody and tell them the devil is a lie. And then those few young people that really want to live for God, that really want to make it, they are in the minority. Have I got any minority folk here? Have I got any folk here that really want to make it? Are there any young folk here that really want to make it? Don't want to do no drugs? Don't want to drink no liquor? Lord, help me through here tonight. Have I got any of you? If you're here, lift your hand and say, I'm one of them today. The enemy is out to do all that he can to destroy the credibility of our youth. They're dying, y'all. Not only dying, but many of them are dead. And the problem that you have is many of the older people have lost hope. Let's look at what Jesus said according to the Gospel of St. Luke. Luke is the only one that records this incident. None of the other three gospel writers record this particular incident. Only Luke. I like to think that Luke recorded it because of his professional training. But nobody else looks at death in the perspective that Luke does. He looks at it as a separation from God. Man died in the garden when he sinned against his maker. But Jesus, God had already told him, the day that you eat of the tree is the day that you shall surely die. Man died a spiritual death. The first day, the first bite of the tree, he died a spiritual death. 900 and some years later, he died a natural death. He still died the first day because 1,000 years in the sight of man is as one day in the eyes of God. So man died the same day. But look, if you will, if you got a Bible, if you got a pen, wherever you are, remember the 7th chapter of the Gospel according to Luke and the 11th verse. And it came to pass the day after that he went into a city called Nain. And many of his disciples went with him, and much people. In other words, when Jesus went to the city of Nain, he was followed by not only his disciples, but a crowd of folk were with him. They were following Jesus to see what Jesus was going to do on any given incident. Now here, Luke records, this is the one time, without anybody asking him, without anybody saying anything to him about the situation, that Jesus actually acted on his own. Nobody petitioned him. Nobody asked him. But Jesus, by compassion, saw that there was a need. Now when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, That was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother. And she was a widow. The woman didn't have nobody else. She didn't have a husband, didn't have a daughter, didn't have family. But the only thing she had was a son, and he was dead. And much people of the city was with her. They were with her because it was customary for people to moan and groan and sympathize with those who had lost loved ones. They went with her out of compassion, and many of them in the crowd were professional mourners. Have you ever lost somebody or got into a hopeless or helpless situation, and instead of folk being around you to encourage you, they were crying more than you were? Can't get no help around here. Instead of them telling you, hang in there, you can make it, they worse off than you are. Well, that was somewhat similar to the situation of the widow of Nain. Much people in the city was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said unto her, weep not. In other words, Jesus was moved because here was a widow woman with only one son that was dead. Husband had already died, and she didn't have nobody else. Many of us today are somewhat in the same situation as the widow of Nain. That is, we've lost everything when we've lost our children. The children that you brought into the world, mothers, that you've nourished and taken care of. The devil has snatched them out of your hands. They're not graveyard dead, but they're spiritually dead. And they're dead to you because they're cut off from you. The only thing you're good for is money to get drugs with, money to get alcohol with. Oh, help me through here, Holy Ghost. And then look at what Jesus said. And when he came and touched the bier, and they that bare him stood still. The bier, the bier that the boy was lying on was a slab that was used to carry the dead. Jews in those days had funerals right away. They didn't wait long. Whenever somebody died, they put them in the ground quickly. They didn't believe in embalming. They didn't believe in having long layovers. Even today, when somebody dies, if you can't fly here the day they die, forget it. Because the next morning, they're on the way to the cemetery. Some of us are like that spiritually. Help me through here now. As soon as something happens that goes against the grain, we're quick to lose hope and lose help and say, it's all over. Ain't nothing I can do about it. It's over. I did all I could for that boy, and he still messed up. Did all I could for that girl, and she still messed up. I talked to her, and she was disobedient. I talked to her, and she hard-headed. I talked to her, and she won't listen to me. So now, what can I do? There's nothing I can do. Every time I try, instead of getting better, she or he gets worse. They're lying on the bier of drug addiction, lying on the bier of prostitution, lying on the bier of depression. And if somebody don't get the attention of Jesus, they're going to the graveyard. Can I get a witness here? And he came and touched the bier, and they that bare him stood still. And he said, young man, I say unto thee, arise. That's what we need Jesus to do. We need the Lord to step in and tell our children to arise. I may not get no amens through here, but you must understand that the devil don't care how young he gets up. He's got young folk with the spirit of I don't care, a nonchalant attitude. If I get saved, fine. If I don't, so what? If I die, so what? They don't know the treachery of death. And they don't understand that their physical bodies dying before they accept Christ is only preparing them for eternal damnation. I want y'all to know that it is a trick of the devil to steal our youth from us. And the reason is because the devil knows that the church of tomorrow lies in our young people. If they don't get a conviction from God and learn what it is to grab a hold to the horns of the altar and get an anointing from God, the church of tomorrow will be doomed before it gets started. No, I ain't gonna get no help through here. The reason is because the devil knows if he can rob us of our spirituality and take away our spiritual priorities, that he's got us on the bier of depression. You will not begin to seek God. And the reason you can't seek him is because you're dead. Anything dead don't know what's going on. Anything dead don't know what's happening around you. Anything dead has no concern about the living. And that's what's happened. The devil has killed our mentality. He slaughtered our spirituality and put us in a state of limbo where we're not able to seek God like we ought to. We're not able to lift hands and say, Lord, help us now. Reason is because so many of the parents have left God. We don't seek God like we once did. Instead of whipping, we don't pray like we ought to. We don't grab a hold to the horns of the altar and tell God about the situation and let him know that our school system is messed up. Anytime young people can be in the back of the schoolroom while the teacher is in the front teaching, they can be in the back selling drugs or on their knees in the back shooting dice or back there playing cards. And if you say anything to them, they'll cuss you out. They're dead, y'all. And somebody needs to call Jesus. In the midst of our dilemma, where is the hope? You must understand that on the way to the cemetery, the widow woman didn't have no hope. Her hope was gone because the boy was dead. What could she ever hope for? She could only go to the cemetery. She didn't have no idea that Jesus was coming that way. As a matter of fact, the widow woman, I'm told, hadn't even heard about the power of Jesus. But it was compassion that moved Jesus to action. As Jesus passed by, I'm looking at the theological concept that Jesus did not just look at the widow woman, but he looked at a boy who didn't have a chance to really know what life was about, had died at a young, tender age, lying on the bier and the men carrying him to the cemetery. But compassion touched the heart of
You've been
Jesus.
listening to an